Ever since the dawn of time, there existed two VR modes of movement, smooth and teleportation. This is the foundation for all VR locomotion. Teleportation, the option for little babies who haven't gotten their VR legs yet, or have motion sickness, I guess, whatever that is. Meanwhile, smooth movement is for the Giga Chads, who want max immersion and to feel like they're really there in Skyrim VR staring at Serana's tits. I am in the latter group. However, even though these are the most prevalent forms of movement, that does not mean they are the only options. No, I want to take you through some ways video game and... I got this. I've read scripts before. Once... 5 years ago. No, I want to take you through some of the ways video game and hardware developers have broken out of this format and done something truly interesting. Strap on your VR headset, grab a coffee or tea, and let's have some fun. Now you might be asking yourself, Lystel, why are you explaining VR locomotion to me instead of being funny and playing games? Also, where's Resident Evil 8 VR? And to that I say, don't worry about it. To start off this video essay, let's touch on teleportation. Ever since VR games started being developed, motion sickness has been a large issue. The easiest way to combat this would be through teleportation, where the player isn't moving in a jarring way and simply teleporting from place to place. Point your controller where you want to go, you teleport. Voila. In other words, the lame option. We can't really talk about teleportation without explaining why it's the necessary option for a lot of people. So let's talk about smooth movement. Smooth movement in VR games is essentially standard video game movement where you move your joystick and you move in game. Cool, right? Slight problem with that though, since your body isn't actually moving and your eyes are seeing movement, that leads to lots of people losing their lunch. Now, I'm one to say just deal with it with a trash bin next to you until you get used to it, since that's what worked for me. However, of course, that doesn't work for everyone. In the larger VR space, we call it getting your VR legs. In my space, I call it voluntary torture. So now we understand why teleportation is necessary for a lot of people. However, surprisingly enough, there have been developers who have made teleportation less lame. Enter budget cuts. In budget cuts, they opted for an all-teleportation style of movement. A large theme of the game, in fact, is teleportation. It has an interesting and unique mechanic where you have a gun that shoots portals. Wait a minute, I swear I've heard this one before. You can also see through the portals when you fire them. Okay, this has to be copyright infringement. How did they get away with this? Obvious comparisons aside, budget cuts is a great example of how you can turn a limitation into a core game feature and pillar with some creativity. It plays with a lot of fun ideas involving gripping office drama, and is easily a staple of early VR gaming. I won't speak too much on budget cuts as I haven't played much of the game, and I more want to focus on Locomotion itself. Am I sticking my tongue out when I'm talking? What the fuck? Sorry, you all are gonna have to put up with me sticking my tongue out until I figure out how gestures work. Now that we've talked about a VR game that excels at teleportation, let's talk about one that provides ample choice for all users between the two forms. Half-Life Alyx. Half-Life Alyx is what most people agree to be one of the best VR games currently released. The developers chose to give numerous options regarding locomotion. You have options for both teleportation and smooth movement, even if smooth movement is frustratingly slow. In teleportation, you have a couple different options. One where you instantly teleport to the intended location, and another where you quickly slide to it. Both are great options that suit the needs of different people. Something to note in Half-Life Alyx, however, even if you're using the smooth locomotion option, you still have to use teleport to jump as there is no jump button or climbing system. Now that we've covered a couple examples of teleportation and the middle ground, let's get on to the good stuff. Smooth locomotion and the best example I've ever seen in a VR game. For me personally, Boneworks is my favorite VR game of all time. I won't hide that. Boneworks makes my Boneworks. Anyway, Boneworks and its sequel Bonelab have some of the best locomotion I've had the pleasure of experiencing, while also simultaneously being the most nauseating. The beautiful people over at Stress Level Zero decided to make their physics simulation as realistic as they could, giving simulated weight to not only interactable items, but your own body as well. Also, you can headbutt people. Cool. In Bonelab, your strength and ability to move is affected completely by your avatar's weight, height, and overall size. The smaller your avatar is, the faster you'll be able to move. However, you'll also be less strong and won't be able to pick up items as well. The larger your avatar is, the slower you'll move, however you'll be stronger. In these games, you're also able to climb. This shit made me sick, but God, it's fun. There's nothing quite like the joy of finding your way to cheese through puzzles because you made a jump that wasn't intended, or speedrunning your way through levels as quickly as possible. However, there's just something about it that doesn't sit right with my neurons. It made my head feel like it was Play-Doh and some 3-year-old got hold of it. Just smushing it around. Now, like I mentioned before, voluntary torture works wonders. After a few short sessions of excruciating nausea and headaches, it all went away. Isn't that something? There are less extreme examples of smooth movement in VR games, of course. However, I respect that Stress Level Zero went all in on it, even if it came at the cost of my dinner. Another large part of VR locomotion is, of course, vehicles and locomotives. Who would have thought? Not me! In multiple VR games, you're able to drive cars and fly aircraft. Bonelab is one of the weirdest examples of this, where in one mission, it literally just starts playing Eurobeat and straps you into a cart, Mario Kart style, while dressed up as an anime girl. It's unhinged, and I fucking love it. On the air side of things, you have games like Jetborne Racing and Microsoft Flight Simulator that let you take to the skies. Jetborne Racing decided it was a good idea to strap you into a jet moving hundreds of miles per hour while making you maneuver through tight racetracks with multiple other racers. Man, was it a good idea, though. No, 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 no! Oh. No, 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 no. Oh, oh, shit. Oh, God. Oh, oh! Ah! The adrenaline and fear this game instills is near unmatched. It made my knees weak, arms sweaty, mom spaghetti. You have to manage how fast you move and turn, otherwise you risk blacking out mid-flight, which is probably one of the scariest things you can experience in VR. Unfortunately, the game does not have a large player base, so I would recommend grabbing a few friends and strapping in for some white-knuckled jet-flying action. If you thought climbing in Boneworks, riding cars in Bonelabs, and flying at hundreds of miles an hour was nauseating, got something better for you. Wait, do I mean better or worse? I don't know. Shit. Something in my eye. Oh my god. This is grueling. I'm struggling out here. There's also a large group of modders in the flat screen to VR community where they collaborate on turning many normal, boring, flat screen games into VR games. There's a wide array of options from Resident Evil to Deep Rock Galactic to Risk of Rain 2 and more. If you've watched my previous content, you've seen me play a flat screen to VR game with Resident Evil 7 using Praydog's VR mod. In this case, almost all flat screen to VR mods use smooth movement due to the limitations of the games and their modding tools. However, the difference between standard smooth movement in a traditional VR game and smooth movement in a flat screen to VR game is that it doesn't give a fuck if you get sick. And that's real cool. I love when my games abuse me. In Resident Evil 7 VR, there are a lot of sequences where your character is getting thrown around, turned upside down, laying on the ground, and moving around without your input. Moving the player without their input is one of the most surefire ways to make your players vom. Regardless of these issues and limitations, however, the work these modders put into these games to make them playable in a completely different way, almost entirely for free, is extremely respectable and only serves to move the VR industry forward. I highly recommend checking them out on the Flat Screen to VR Discord so you too too can be slammed into the ground by a hot vampire lady. 10 out of 10. Would do again. Oh, have I talked about VR chat yet? There isn't a superhero I love more on this silly little earth of ours than Spider-Man. I've watched all the movies many times over, played every game I could get my grubby little mitts on. I cry at the end of Spider-Man 2018 every single goddamn time I replay it. Read the Ultimate Spider-Man comic book run twice. Suffice to say, I love Spider-Man. Now, before you ask why I'm talking about Spider-Man in my VR Locomotion video, one, it's my video and I'll do what I want. I also have a reason, though. In VR chat, you can play a number of custom-made game modes and maps uploaded by the community, one of which is the Ultimate Spider-Lair. I'll admit, there really isn't much meat to this package outside swinging. However, there's no VR experience like it if all you want to is, yes, I'm about to say it, feel like Spider-Man swinging around New York. No, I won't talk about the Far From Home VR experience. That doesn't count. Get that garbage out of here. I ain't having it. Fucking movie tie-in piece of shit. The swinging mechanics are superb, and that feeling of soaring through the air, pulling tricks and doing flips, there's just nothing quite like it. I can't count the number of hours I've spent just swinging around the Lair's rendition of New York, listening to my favorite Spidey tracks, including the Spider-Verse Christmas soundtrack. The developers have also recently added vehicles and a competitive scoring system to compete with your friends to see who the real Spider-Man is, and give you more to do in the lair. The fact that this was all done by community members of VRChat is seriously impressive and commendable. There's also some worlds in VRChat that do some weird stuff with locomotion, like roller coasters and other amusement park rides, including the lair. For some reason, Liz, I don't know what compelled them to put a roller coaster and like whole theme park in Spider-Lair, but I support it. You know, good for you guys. You're really branching out. But to be quite frank, I don't feel like talking about those today. Sue me. Now that we've covered the extreme ups and downs, literally, of smooth movement, let's get to the weird stuff. This, my friends, is a Walk C2 Plus, a VR slide mill that aims to revolutionize VR movement. Now, it's important to point out, Cat VR are not the first people to do this. VR treadmills and slide mills have been around for quite a while. However, Cat VR are one of the first few companies to get the price down enough for it to be more accessible to the average VR enthusiast. Now, in case you haven't been able to tell yet, I may or may not be a part of that market. I also may or may not have spent $1,500+ to get my hands on one of these bad boys. Personally, I want to be as immersed in my VR gaming as I possibly can, so of course the natural choice is to spend an exorbitant amount of money on one single VR peripheral, because that's the sane choice, right? Someone please tell me I'm right. I'm in immense amounts of consumer debt. Crippling debt and poor life choices aside, man, is this thing cool. It works by having low friction shoes and a slippery surface you have to oil up, much like me on the weekend. It has... I wrote this. Reading it's a whole other beast. It has trackers built into the shoes to enable semi-accurate walking, which does its best to translate your real steps into VR. When you step forward on the edge of the base, your feet slide backwards towards the middle due to the low friction shoes and lubricant, therefore registering a full step in VR. It does feel a bit like you're walking constantly uphill, even with the oil due to the curved nature of the base that you're walking in. Also, every time the built-in haptics turn on, it sounds like I have left my apartment and entered a construction site. In Cat VR's defense, I did reach out and they sent me a replacement motor. I'm sure that will fix the issue as soon as I have the motivation to install it. Oh, my fucking nose, dude. Oh, it's stuffed up, dude. Fuck. Now, let's talk about how this thing feels to use. I was running a fully modded Skyrim VR, and there's nothing quite like the feeling of jogging across mountainside villages in the beautiful wildernesses of Skyrim in VR. I distinctly remember a moment where I was getting really tired, but I happened to come across a carriage, And with the Traveling Carriages mod, I was able to ride and enjoy the views looking up at the towering snowy mountains. Luckily, the C2 Plus also has a built-in seat function you can pull out if you're getting tired and want to rest at an inn while drinking your Honningbrew mead and listen to the bard play the same songs you've heard 1,000 times before. But they're just so damn catchy. But let's be real here. Most, if not all of you, aren't going to spend $1,500+ on a VR slide mill you're not going to use most of the time because you don't feel like sweating or strapping yourself in for the next 2 hours. No, I'm not talking from experience. Why would you say that? Luckily for you, however, there's alternatives. Natural Locomotion is an application on Steam that, as of the time of writing this, you can purchase for, put my hands here, $9.99. This app has a few different functions, however the one I'm interested in talking about today is the Locomotion. You can move in VR by doing certain actions in real life. For instance, you can sway or swing your arms to simulate walking or running without having to touch your joystick. It also has an option for connecting to your phone, allowing you to move by walking in place. This is a great way to immerse yourself more in the game worlds without having to spend tons of money. I used to use this application before I purchased my slide mill, and I could firmly say it's worth the money if you are looking for a cheap, simple, and effective way to increase your immersion. I remember one time I was using Natural Locomotion, and I was playing, again, fully modded Skyrim VR. I was just running for my life, like I was from a dragon, just sprinting. I mean, I wasn't literally sprinting, but I felt like I was sprinting, and I felt real cool. And by cool, I mean scared. So you might be asking yourself, what was the point of this video, and where's Resident Evil 8 VR? And to answer that question, I'd say, hell if I know, and stop asking about it. At the end of the day, I just love VR. I'll take any excuse I can to talk about it. VR has a lot to offer, and we're nowhere near seeing its full potential. It's a growing, evolving market, and it's one that I want to be in every step of the way. In a way, this video is kind of my love letter to VR and its systems, while documenting my experiences and acknowledging the good and bad. VR offers experiences that you simply can't get anywhere else, and I think that's a deeply interesting thing to behold. VR personally has affected me in my life a lot. It holds a special place in my heart. Locomotion is one of the most important factors to immersion and overall comfort while playing, so I believe it's important to take some time to explore how it functions and why it exists as it does, and how developers use these tools. Alright, off script now. Thanks guys for sticking around this late in the video for this weird exploration of VR Locomotion. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, feel free to drop a like or subscribe. If you didn't like it, I still wish you the best. If you like this new video essay format, give me some comments on ideas for future videos or other topics you want me to cover. Maybe I'll go all in on the love letter to VR video, Valentine's special. I've also ordered a big screen Beyond, so hopefully when that arrives sometime between January to March, I'm planning on reviewing that and seeing how it holds up to my Index or my Quest 2. Also, I lied about being off script. Like half of that was off script. Well, I wrote most of that. I'm gonna put a clip here of my script. You can see it. You can see I wrote that. It's not good. I'm kind of proud of it. Not really. Anyway, that's all I got for you this time. See ya.